Welcome to Cause Before Symptom with your guest host, Josh, also known as the official Urban. You can follow Urban on Twitter for free resources, ebooks, and notes. Myself and Pastor Carner appreciate each and every one of you who have decided to join us tonight for our live show. Let's get into it.
All right, guys, tonight I am leaving to go gold mining, and I'm leaving the show with my producer and publicist, Urban, okay? Urban's my guy, and he's going to be taking care of you for the next 5 days until I return Friday, all right? So I want you to chill out. Don't worry, I'll be back, but trust in Urban. He loves the show, and we are working it out between him and I to help me when I just can't be there for you guys, because I know you still want content even when I'm gone. Therefore, I'm going to be sending you content from a guy by the name of Masters Mahan. And I'm telling you, the kind of stuff that he exposes will blow you away. And I think it's important that you learn it and understand it, because there are satanic ritual abuse people all over the world, and they're survivors. They need to be heard. And this is why I want you to watch these for the next 5 days. God bless you. Thank you. And be good to Urban. Love you guys. Bye.
This episode of Cause Before Symptom is sponsored by the Flame USA, the most censored old-school print newspaper around.
If you're looking for a publication that delivers honest takes and critical insights into the issues of our day, then look no further than the Flame Paper. The Flame Paper is written for the people, by the people, who aren't afraid to challenge a mainstream narrative, be it healthcare, voter fraud, political correctness, or even the one-world government. The Flame is full of timely articles, reports, and expert advice written by freedom-loving, truth-telling experts, journalists, and concerned citizens. To subscribe, go to theflameusa.com.
Alright guys, it looks like we're back. Welcome back to Cause Before Symptom. I'm your guest host, Urban. Tonight we have a little bit more Masters Mahan in store. We're going to be covering some deep topics tonight. We're going to be covering what's called the 5 principles of satanic human enslavement. They get pretty dark, I'm not going to lie. These are the 5 attributes or traits which have to be removed from the victim, subject, whatever you want to call the person, before you can program them. This is part of the programming, I suppose, but these are the core tenets that programming revolve around. So I think I'm going to start it there. I think we're going to get right into it. So let's see if I got this set up good. I spent all day trying to get this set up the way that I like it. I think that I got something good rigged up. So if you just bear with me, we'll get it going.
You are now listening to the Masters Mahan Podcast. Episode 6, Satanic Principle of Human Control, Number 1, To Have No Needs. If you have been ritualistically or scientifically abused, you should stop now and ask someone safe, whom you trust, to let them listen first, and then only listen in their company, or if they deem it is safe for you. Some information might be triggering. If you are a minor, please consult your parents before continuing. This episode builds on the previous ones. Some podcast players, like many Luciferian chant spells, do things in reverse. If yours does, you should start at episode 1 and get the most out of this information as it builds upon itself. Or don't, and be confused. I have heard Jews say that the greatest aspect of Christian worship is their incredible gift of music. Christianity has so many beautiful hymns and amazing choirs. These songs fill the vaulted cathedrals and conference centers of Christianity with miraculous praises to our God and only King. He hears them and has said back, "The song of the righteous is a prayer unto me." For many, one of the favorite prayers of song is Annie Hawks's, "I need thee every hour." I need thee every hour, most gracious Lord. No tender voice like thine can peace afford. I need thee every hour, stay thou nearby. Temptations lose their power when thou art nigh. Today we need him more than ever, because
abuse is a grievous sin. Any kind of abuse of women, children, or anyone is an abomination to the Lord. Those who perpetrate these hideous acts are not only accountable to the laws of man, but will also face the wrath of Almighty God.
I have faith that the Constitution will be saved by the righteous citizens of the United States who love and cherish freedom.
In coming days, we will see the greatest manifestations of the Savior's power that the world has ever seen. Between now and the time he returns with power and great glory, he will bestow countless privileges, blessings, and miracles upon the faithful.
all life has needs. They can be simple, such as food, water, and shelter. But in truth, they are deeper. We need nurture, protection, purpose, identity, love, forgiveness, and God, among many other needs. Needs are actually simple, and most noticeable to those who don't have them or need them. Need is a basic human tenet, and what Luciferians want us to need is their new normal. Let's step into the darkness, or as the Luciferians trigger, a little boy who can't be good should
just as well be made of wood.
We are in a cage.
Please, please make me into a real live boy. Please make me real.
To destroy a child's natural sense of need in order to force the child to only need what they are told to need, the child born into Satanism is placed inside a boring room with no sensory stimuli. The walls are usually flat gray, boring beige, or stark white. The child is left alone for hours or for the entire day with nothing to do but live inside their inner world. They come to believe and fear that this is their new normal reality. If the child makes any noise or begs to be released, they are beaten and told that their time in isolation must now be increased. They are told that they are weak and must learn to be strong. If necessary, straitjackets and incarceration can be used, just as was done anciently to the children of Egyptian royalty when they were mummy-wrapped to teach them to need nothing. The arms crossed in front of the chest were the sign of this. This is the same effect given in modern straitjackets. Well, I call them straight. Straight as opposed to what? The children of most of today's elite families are put through some form of this by their parents and royal grandmothers before being given over to their handlers later.
Rule Britannia, Britannia, rule the waves. Britons never, never, never shall be slaves.
Generationally, these future leaders are taught that they must learn to not need others, but rely only on themselves and their internal resources, which in their case includes their inserted demon. This will make them strong, it is believed. The goal is to change the God-given need to walk the road back to Eden by turning their hearts to stone, as warped as this is.
Beneath the white fire of the moon, love's wings are broken all too soon. We're dreamers in castles made of sand. The road to Eden's overgrown. Don't you sometimes wish your heart was made of stone? Look at the headlines, big crowd at the playhouse. Long queue for the Joker's shoes. Sweet rain like mercy in the night. Take me down, wash away the sorrow. How long is love supposed to shine? Diamonds are forever. But you and I, we hurt together.
In other words, the road to Eden is so overgrown with weeds that it's better to take a different road. The yellow brick road, perhaps. The one that ends with the wizard?
I am Oz, the great and powerful.
Just look at the headlines for meaning, and maybe the moon. The occultists long for the moon because they connect it to Thoth and their desire for immortality on their terms. We will have more on this. We'll leave the water lyrics for a later time when we discuss spell casting. But note again with the water lyrics. There's a big crowd at the Crazy House where everyone is trying on the shoes of the Joker to be seen, to be a celebrity, a star, and that is the path to Satan's godhood here.
Hi diddly dee, an actor's life for me. A high silk hat and a silver cane, a watch of gold with a diamond chain. Hi diddly day, an actor's life is gay. It's great to be a celebrity, an actor's life for me.
Since that is not lasting beyond death, it's better to be a diamond, since they last forever. Do an internet search for memorial diamonds and see what you find. Ever wonder why the bodies of many sacrificed children are never found? Ever wonder why some royal families are literally dripping in diamonds? It's a form of manna in the occult. But if at least your manna is a diamond on the Sun King's crown, you can honestly say that your heart has been turned to stone, there to twinkle in stardom. Either way, note that Cinderella's castle has a foundation that is made of sand. So why do this? Why turn your heart to stone? Cher and lyricists Hill and Sinfield tell us that as well.
Mercy, mercy, wish your heart was a heart of stone. You'll be well protected. Don't you sometimes wish your heart was made of stone?
Do you see it? With a heart of stone, you will be strong and protected. With a heart of stone, you'll belong to your occult family, only need what they determine you should need, and then you'll be well connected. This can't be mercy, mercy. It is ultimately a mockery of the heavenly concept of introspection, fasting, and spiritual communion, such as the Lord's 40-day fast in the wilderness. The major difference, of course, is that this step of discipline is forced upon the child, based in immaturity, and is not wanted by the child. Strength conditioning without free will is abuse, but it does create a new normal for the child's worldview. The purpose of this abuse is to teach the child to rely on its own internal resources and not on outside people, called strengthening the child. What it actually does is create a huge terror of abandonment within the child. When the adult or trainer returns to the room, the child is often found rocking itself or hugging itself in a corner, occasionally almost catatonic from fear. The trainer will then rescue the child, feed it, and give it something to drink, and bond with the child as their savior. The trainer will tell the child that the family told the trainer to rescue the child because the family loves him or her. The trainer will instill occult teachings at this point into the helpless, fearful, and almost insanely grateful child who has just been rescued from isolation. People are more willing to obey if they are told that they can take their suffocating straitjacket off and leave isolation in exchange for needing only what they are told to need. Incidentally, did you know that when Satanists gather and put on their masks, they stand 6 feet apart? The trainer will reinforce in the child over and over how much it needs the occult family, who just rescued it from the plague of death by starvation or abandonment. This will teach the very young toddler to associate comfort and security with bonding with its trainer, who may also be one of its parents, and being with family members.
Don't you want to get back to enjoying concerts, crowded sports events, movie theaters, Disneyland? All you have to do is obey.
Oh boy!
Gosh! The occult is very aware of child development principles and has developed exercises like the above over hundreds of years of teaching very young children. If you can stand the tears, do an internet search on the life of Caspar Hauser of Bulgaria, an Illuminati test subject, to understand what this can be like. These satanic principles work equally well on a society. But you are probably well ahead of us now, having personally experienced these concepts for yourself over nearly 2 years of being locked down. Human beings are social creatures. We get our news, our opinions, our heritage, and much of our belief systems from our peers. When we are isolated, muzzled, or in extensive lockdowns, we tend to lean on government leaders and broadcast news to form our worldviews and rescue us. We are forced to create mythos in isolation. Our Creator has said that it is not good for man or women to be alone. As an example of this in society, Australia's Guardian newspaper reported, over the recent lockdown, everyone became withdrawn, even after restrictions ended. One man said of his experience following Australia's pandemic lockdowns, "No one wants to hang out anymore. It feels like life and society have permanently changed." New research has found that lockdown loneliness has, for many people, lingered. Even though most restrictions have been lifted, social networks that were disrupted by the pandemic lockdown haven't been stitched back together in the same way. Experts warn that loneliness increases the chance of poor health outcomes, from early death to anxiety, depression, and even dementia. For those who felt lonely at least some of the time, about 48% felt lonely in lockdown, while 41% felt lonely after lockdown, the Australians reported. The data found that men, people with strong ties, and those in relationships were more likely to rebound better after the lockdown, while people on low incomes, women, and people with disabilities were less likely to recover as swiftly. The study's co-author said it was possible that men transitioned better out of lockdown because they were more likely to swiftly resume their activities, whereas women may not have been able to resume meaningful connections as quickly. But since it is impossible for millennials to define what a woman or a man is anymore, none of this matters anyway. But people on low incomes did suffer more, it was reported. I would assume that those who self-identify as cats had an easier time than those who self-identify as sires or bitches. But even cats get lonely sometimes. The study also found increased digital interaction, such as through video conferencing. Was not a panacea for diminished physical interaction in the post-pandemic world. In other words, it didn't really help. Suicide-related ambulance calls rose by more than 50% during Australia's lockdown. Others talked about the anxiety of not having a partner or an existing group of friends and the worry of trying to form new relationships, while still others talked about their job loss and the impact that had on other human interactions. Some home-based family relationships were strengthened, while new romantic partnerships were thwarted. Life was interrupted in different ways for different people. It was noted that loneliness doesn't come from a lack of relationships, but from a lack of quality relationships. People can be in a crowded room and interact with each other and still be lonely. But the satanic-controlled national media and the Luciferian-controlled internet fact-checkers say that none of this is true. It's more important to follow the constantly changing science, as dictated to us by the children of former Italian and German Nazis. So look the other way, you have nothing to worry about. Watch that next singing award show or viral cat. Need that stardom and try to escape your provincial life.
There must be more than this provincial life.
Back through the water curtain. Now, it's true that the occult will say that all of this is done to make one strong. But they always lie. Without being allowed need, humans become desperate for need and will thus accept another's need as their own if that is the only choice they have. They can later snap in anger, but the sheeples will be told that the problem are the guns, while their Judas goat leaders march them along in a line. We will have more on all of this because love's wings are broken all too soon, and too many of us never learn. And then we hurt together, and we hurt alone. Aren't you glad that your heart isn't made of stone? On the great day of judgment, when your heart is weighed in the balance, you will be glad that it is not. Give your love away to others. You will discover that both you and they need it. Fair use claim. We are claiming fair use for the items in this podcast in which we do not own the copyright. United States law allows us to use items copyrighted by others in this podcast without their permission in the manner that we have under fair use. American courts have ruled that using another's copyrighted items in this manner is crucial when commenting and illustrating subject matter. Otherwise, news and commentary in the public discourse would be hindered, which is a violation of our constitutional rights including our freedom of speech and freedom of the press, etc. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Masters Mahan will
I've been listening to this probably about 3 times in total. That last little part there that he does about love, the importance of loving each other, is probably one of my favorites monologues of the whole series. Deep words there. But what is this that we're watching? Why did James ask me to show this to you? It's because this is some information that I found buried in the deepest parts of Spotify. Hadn't really been listened to, and I listened to it, and it really surprised me, the information that was included in it. I came to the conclusion, for which I have reasonable evidence to support, that the individual who is the narrator works with survivors in a white-collar setting. It seems he's interviewed many of these people. It seems that he's familiar with how this system works. So his information is credible. I've reviewed this with a few survivors whom I have had the pleasure of meeting. They were really satisfied with it. They said it helped them. It unlocked memories for them, and it really filled in some gaps. I know one of the first few questions is, what's up with the sound effects? The sound effects are there, so essentially they're part of a Pavlovian conditioning bit. The idea is that you're being conditioned using the Pavlov model of the dog and the bell, and you're going to associate those sounds with certain concepts and ideas. And it's going to teach you how easy it is for that to develop, and how it will develop without you even knowing it's happening. So that's the purpose of the sound effects. So I'm going to go ahead real quick and play a clip that explains the meaning of Masters Mahan. What does Masters Mahan mean? So here we go. Let's do that.
All these Judases stand as examples of Cain, who betrayed his own brother Abel at the altar of the Lord, and thus became the first Mahanist, the first of the Masters Mahan. Masonry functioned on the belief that they had inherited what was left of the sacred rites of Solomon's temple. While modern Masons claim today that they don't believe that, it is important to understand that all Masons before 1930 did believe it, and emphatically. In fact, they claimed that they were all that was left of the ancient rites of Solomon. They lamented, in point of fact, that over the centuries they had lost the last great secret of those that had been passed down. And so they simply chose to call this missing information the Mahabone. Pull out the sacred Bet, and you have Mahan, Mahan, the forbidden secret.
Yeah, so that's basically the meaning of Master Mahan. The fact that it really exists within the Mormon Church as official church doctrine should really alarm you. That is a word that's been confirmed to be a Masonic password, pass token. So that should really alarm you, that there's that crossover between Mormonism and the religion of Freemasonry. Not all Freemasons follow the religion of Freemasonry. Many are Christian, Muslim, Jewish, whatever. But there are some at the very highest levels who view Freemasonry as a religion. And that's really what Albert Pike and Manly P. Hall we're getting at, is that the philosophy they formed around Freemasonry and their outlook on it, that really formed the religion behind Freemasonry, which was very heavily influenced by Kabbalah, Kabbalistic teachings. So that's really where this comes from. So now that we've done the first episode, I wanted to read some notes that I wrote for each of the principles. The first one that we reviewed was to have no needs. You have to get rid of someone's needs. So this principle suggests a state where a person is stripped of their basic needs, both physical and emotional. In the context of mind control, this could mean depriving individuals of autonomy, rendering them completely dependent on an external power for survival. On a societal level, it could manifest as the erosion of self-sufficiency, where people rely on institutions or systems that may not have their best interests at heart. This dependency can be used to control behavior, as those who are deprived of their needs are more likely to comply with authority. And that really is what this is all about, is authority. We've given in to authority, and that's going to be what ends up doing us in. Because now everyone is jacked into Facebook and social media and the news. It doesn't matter which news network. It doesn't matter right, left. They're all owned by the same people. And the people who have all the money have all the power. That's just how it is. That's how it's been for centuries. Follow the money and you'll have all the answers. But the next principle that we're going to go over is to have no wants. Once you get rid of someone's needs, it's time to get rid of their wants. And let's get started with that. Actually, you know what? We're going to go ahead and do an ad for the flame.
If you're looking for a publication that delivers honest takes and critical insights into the issues of our day, then look no further than the Flame Paper. The Flame Paper is written for the people, by the people, who aren't afraid to challenge a mainstream narrative, be it healthcare, voter fraud, political correctness, or even the one world government. The Flame is full of timely articles, reports, and expert advice written by freedom-loving, truth-telling experts, journalists, and concerned citizens. To subscribe, go to theflameusa.com.
You are now listening to the Masters Mahan Podcast. You are now listening to the Masters Mahan Podcast. Episode 7. Satanic Principle of Human Control, Number 2. To have no wants. In our last episode, we explored the number 1 principle of satanic mind control training, and ultimate inner world building. The desire to remove any needs from a child except that which is determined as needful by the occult. We also explored how the same principle is used on society in general, for more or less the same effect. In this episode, we will explore the second principle of satanic programming, to have no wants. All parents know that one of the lessons kids need to learn is to distinguish needs from wants. This is a normal lesson, and it is not an easy one. At first, children, and sadly many immature adults, think that their wants are their needs. In terms of psychopaths, sociopaths, and extreme narcissists, it is the same thing. The less self-absorbed among us know that wants are important, but not always possible, and that needs are paramount first. If you have not listened to the previous podcast, you should. In fact, you need to, so that this one will make more sense. But do what you want.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order.
Now, this is where I was born. I was born in Kenya, unless we take the action necessary and we build in a greener and more sustainable and more inclusive way, then we will end up having more and more pandemics and disasters from ever-accelerating global warming and climate change.
Wise leaders always put the good of their own country first. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots. We will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country.
Here in Israel, they're making this green passport where the population cannot get into theaters or malls or all sorts of things. They're creating a medical apartheid.
There would be an enormous economic collapse prior to the revealing. The stock market would destabilize. It would make the Great Depression look like Sunday school.
Let's step into the darkness. Or as the Luciferians trigger, time to shake your tail feathers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bob Hope.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our big themes: sex, persecution, adultery, and cannibalism. Some gift that's like getting a liver transplant from Dean Martin.
Once a child is traumatized into having no needs, but the ones that they are told to have, the next goal is for the child to have no wants, but those wanted for him or her by Lucifer. One does instantly recall Lucifer's original plan in heaven to do away with free will and force all people to be good. This plan was rejected and ultimately resulted in his fall from the heavens. Now, the ability to have no personal wants, but that which Lucifer ordains, is an outgrowth of having no personal needs. It is actually just an acceleration of the first step. Again, the child is left alone without food, water, or stimulus for long periods of time. If you can stand the tears, do an internet search on the life of Caspar Hauser of Bulgaria, an Illuminati test subject, to understand what this can be like. Periodically, a trainer will enter with a large pitcher of water or a large plate of food. The adult will enjoy these in front of the child. If the child asks for anything, the child will be savagely beaten and mocked for being weak and needy. The child is taught to have no wants unless an item is offered from a higher-up first. Thus the old school: a child should be seen, not heard. Again, the reason for this, the occult says, is to create a child who is strong and can go without food and water for longer and longer periods of time. The real reason this is done is that it creates a child who is completely disassociated from his or her own comfort needs and who becomes afraid to ask outside adults for any help or rescue they want. In time, this will extend to God as well. The occult knows that their children who have reached up to God have been given, in time, the strength to escape. Sometimes at that very moment, but more often when they are teenagers or adults. The occult wants to reinforce that having no wants, including not wanting to escape or wanting God's help, is not to be wanted as well. The side effect of this is to create in the child a hyper-vigilance, so that he or she learns to look to adults for clues on when it is okay to fulfill needs and never trust his or her own body signals or internal voices. The child is already learning to look outside itself for others to learn what it should think or feel instead of trusting his or her own feelings, including the promised light of Christ. The occult now becomes the focus of control for the child's entire internal structure. Their masters are the ones who have the morality to say what is black and what is white and what is good and what is evil and when black is white and when evil is good. Many children so abused say that the memories of this abuse are stored inside them in actual black and white, as opposed to in color. To reinforce this, many of the rooms of occult members have floors that are made of black and white tiles, exactly like a chessboard. The child is, of course, the pawn and has to take the steps ordained by the chess master, willing to fall to protect the king, priest, and idol, queen, bishop, noble, or property at all costs. This is reinforced in the child's mind as they step across the floor before being taken into the presence of their torturing king or queen, moved like a pawn. The other way this principle is reinforced is by creating the idea within the mind of the child that they are under constant surveillance. Hold that thought a moment. We'll come back to it. The truth is that torturing a child until they have no wants doesn't make them strong. It makes them hard and unempathetic towards others. That is the occult's definition of strength. Psychiatrists will tell you that the number one commonality in all pathological narcissists is growing up with a parent who always puts their needs and wants above the child's. The hyperdiligence that this creates in watching signs from others for survival is that the child learns to see all things in a way that pertain to them alone. In the animal kingdom, we might call this opportunism. Even when an animal steals a meal from another in order to feed their children, the act is about them being a good parent, and not necessarily their offspring's want or need. As said before, all of this creates a supervigilance, which is ultimately fear-based. Fear is faith in the occult. This kind of inner attitude is necessary to start wars, medically experiment on people, engage in slavery and human trafficking. Some say that some unfair, unempathetic act is just business, start a scam that hurts others, and basically break any or all of the 10 Commandments of God or the laws of Father Noah when they are told to want to. Again, this principle is useful in changing how a society functions too. Consider our global lockdown as an example. The removal of our global society's needs in isolation created a new want in the public. This is our new normal, we are told. We were repeatedly told that if we wanted to get back to mostly normal, because we are told there was no going completely back, we would need to participate in a new want. That want was to create herd immunity, get constant disease checks, accept health passports, get rid of tangible money, communicate all our self-editing thoughts on social media, and only want what we were told to want for the good of a greater society. All of this is based on fear because all of us needed to be hyper-vigilant. Do you see it? Anyone expressing the opposite of fear, faith in a good God, for example, to protect us, was beaten and mocked in some countries literally, but in most figuratively. We might call this shaming people. In terms of constant surveillance, this principle also is used on the public. In modernity, it started with believe it or not.
You better watch out, you better not cry, better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, he knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake.
Once you do see it, you will not unsee it. It has been absolutely, on purpose, reinforced as the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Stupid Land.
Most everyone's mad here. You may have noticed that I'm not all there myself. And the more us
The great and powerful Oz in The Wizard of the Same Name.
I am Oz, the great and powerful. Who are you? Who are you?
Zeus in Walt Disney's Fantasia, and most recently Snoke's huge floating head in the popular Jedi saga.
General, Supreme Leader Snoke is making contact from his ship.
Excellent. I'll take it in my chambers.
General Hux.
Ah, good. Supreme Leader...
My disappointment in your performance cannot be overstated.
They can't get away, Supreme Leader.
All serve to reinforce the same teaching. You better watch out. Santa Claus is watching you, and you may or may not get that reward you want. That you want. In our modern one-mind think, police state, we have been encouraged to give all our secrets away in a sort of farce book where our lives can be recorded and publicly shamed by peers and analyzed by governmental intelligence agencies. This has been actively encouraged, as warped as it is.
I need another story, something to get off my chest. My life gets kinda boring, need something that I can confess. Oh God, amazing how we got this far. It's like we're chasing all those stars who drive a shiny big black cars. And every day I see the news, all the problems that we could solve. And when a situation rises, just riding into an album, singing it straight to gold. But I don't really like my flow, no, so tell me what you want to hear. Something that I know is singing on the and I'm gonna give all my secrets away this time. Got no reason, got no shame, got no family I can blame. Just don't let me disappear. I'ma tell you everything, so tell me what you want to hear. Something that'll light those ears. I'm sick of all the insincere. So I'm gonna give all my secrets away this time. Don't need another perfect line. Don't care if critics ever jump in line. I'm gonna give all my secrets. Tell me what you want to hear. Something that'll light those ears.
Tell me what you want from me. Why don't you know what you want for yourself? Sure. You were told that you want to give all your secrets away. Then you can become an internet celebrity, because that is how you become a god today. A star. Remember the Watcher cult? Confess your sins to Farcebook and be healed, my child. Sadly, many religions try and scare their children too with, God is watching you. I know one fundamentalist Baptist child who was taught that at the moment he sinned or had an evil thought, he needed to quickly repent immediately or God would crush him with his huge, heavy Thor-like hammer, squish. Muslims are told that they would be literally turned to stone, with their butts up in the air, I suppose, if God sees them forgetting to pray 5 times a day. Some have tried to use God to shame others during our lockdown. These were the most sickening to me. Jesus would have worn a mask. Really? Go back and read your New Testament again this time, without your dunce cap on your head.
Oh boy!
But it's time to go back through the water curtain. True Christians know that Jesus Christ is much more forgiving than we are taught. His New Testament clearly shows this. Our Creator does want us to ultimately want Him, but He's only interested in sincerity, and so is more than willing to wait at the door for us to knock and welcome Him in, when we are willing and want to receive Him. His greatest Son died to give us free will and he will not take that away from us too quickly. So, knock yourself at the door and start the process. It takes faith to knock, but either way, have no fear. The true God is a God of love, and he wants nothing but the best for you. We will have more on all of this. Fair use
Welcome
claim.
to Cause Before
We are
Symptom
claiming fair
with your
use
guest
for the
host,
items
Josh,
in this podcast
also
in
known
which
as
we do
the
not
Official
own the copyright.
You can follow
United
Urban
States
on
law
Twitter
allows
for
us to
free
use
resources,
items.
ebooks, and notes. Myself and Pastor Carner appreciate each and every one of you who have decided to join us tonight for our live show. Let's get into it.
All right, guys, tonight I am leaving to go gold mining, and I'm leaving the show with my producer and publicist, Urban, okay? Urban's my guy, and he's going to be taking care of you for the next 5 days until I return Friday, all right? So I want you to chill out. Don't worry, I'll be back, but trust in Urban. He loves the show, and we are working it out between him and I to
the Masters
help me when I
Mahan
just
Podcast.
can't be there for you guys, because I know you still want content
Satanic
even when I'm
Principle
gone.
of Human.
Therefore, I'm going to be sending you content from a guy by the name of Masters Mahan. And I'm telling you, the kind of stuff that he exposes will blow you away. And I think it's important that you learn it and understand it. Because there are satanic ritual abuse people all over the world, and they're survivors. They need to be heard. And this is why I want you to watch these for the next 5 days. God bless you. Thank you. And be good to Urban. Love you guys. Bye.
This episode of Cause Before Symptom is sponsored by the Flame USA, the most censored old-school print newspaper around.
If you're looking for a publication that delivers honest takes and critical insights into the issues of our day, then look no further than the Flame Paper. The Flame Paper is written for the people, by the people, who aren't afraid to challenge a mainstream narrative, be it healthcare, voter fraud, political correctness, or even the one-world government. The Flame is full of timely articles, reports, and expert advice written by freedom-loving, truth-telling experts, journalists, and concerned citizens. To subscribe, go to theflameusa.com.
Yeah, so funny story. I went to get the link for the Flames website probably a day or two ago. I go to Google, type it in, and I can't find it. Doesn't come up in Google. It doesn't come up in DuckDuckGo. It doesn't come up in pre-search, which is what the search engine that I use. I had to go to Yandex, which is a Russian search engine, to get the Flame USA to come up. So it appears whatever is in that newspaper, which I read, and it's great. I've read what James writes in the paper. He writes an occasional column in the paper. It's really good, and if they don't want you to hear what's in it, I would heavily consider subscribing to it. I think it's $5-6 a month. So now that we've done To Have No Wants, what I wrote for this one, eliminating desires or wants is another form of control. In mind control, this could involve suppressing an individual's aspirations or dreams, reducing them to a state of passive existence where they no longer seek improvement or change. On a societal level, the principle can be employed to suppress ambition and creativity, leading to a more docile and compliant population. By discouraging personal goals or material desires, individuals may become more easily manipulated as they are less likely to challenge the status quo. I know a lot of people personally that are going through these types of things. This is a very real problem. I'd say reasonable estimate, this has been going on for at least 100 years. Takes about 3 generations. That's why the Monarch butterfly is so important to these Project Monarch, is because they use the Monarch butterfly to discover the trauma passed down for about 3 generations. It becomes genetic. So if 3 generations of children are traumatized, it will ingrain itself into the DNA, and that really goes to make you wonder why so many people have the issues they do today. So we're going to get through all 5 of these tonight. The next one, number 3, is to have no wish or hope. So let's go ahead and get that one started.
You are now listening to the Masters Mahan Podcast. Episode 8, Satanic Principle of Human Control, number 3, To Not Wish Nor Hope. If you have been ritualistically or scientifically abused, you should stop now and ask someone safe whom you trust to let them listen first, and then only listen in their company or if they deem it is safe for you. Some information might be triggering. If you are a minor, please consult your parents before continuing. In our last episodes, we explored the first 2 principles of Luciferian control and manipulation of both their initiates and the public in general. If you have not listened to these episodes, you both need to and want to, but use your free will. This episode will explore the 3rd satanic step, to crush all wishes and hopes, but those given to you. Here is what's at stake.
It's one small step for man, one
we are as a people
giant
opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret machines. And we are opposed around the world by a prolific and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means.
Well, join me. I'm glad to sit here at the right hand of Satan.
The vision of Joel has been fulfilled.
So the name of this project is FunVax.
We don't just need more money for vaccines for children eventually. We need more money to plan for the second pandemic. There's going to be another pandemic.
We'll eliminate this behavior. And we believe that's a satisfactory way to get that
Microphone answer. He, him, is.
Do you think the first gay president or the first woman
We already
president?
have it with Obama, so let's just calm down. Michelle is a transgender. We all know.
And so we eat the blood of our enemy. But you know, there's quite an awakening coming.
Once a child, or a society's ability to determine their own needs and wants, have been eliminated to the occult's satisfaction, it is next necessary to remove any ability to trust in wishful thinking or hope. Let's illuminate how they do this to their own, and try to do this to you and me, by stepping into the darkness, or as the Luciferians warn, keep one eye on Sagittarius. In an attempt to destroy a child's need to wish and want to hope, the child will next be placed in a room with favorite toys, objects, or animals. A kindly adult will come into the room and play with the child to build trust. Seeing a possible out from what they have been experiencing during the first 2 steps of satanic control, the child will eventually open up to this adult and see him or her as a confidant. They will share their innermost fantasies, fears, and concerns with this person, including any reservations they have about life, the way they are being treated, and any secret hopes or plans they have. This friend will leave the child for a lengthy period, weeks or months, but will say that they will return at a future time to help them escape or rescue them from their hellish life. During the absence, the child's regular life will be made extra difficult until the child begins to see the returning friend as their savior and as their only means of escape. They may even fantasize about running away with this friend and the hope of a better life. This is the wish and hope that their abusers are waiting for. Once this wish or hope is planted deeply, the friend will return and put the child through many terrible sadistic experiences. They will mock the child, kill the child's favorite pet in front of them, and or break their only toys. They will openly mock their dreams and fantasies, and in front of them tell their secrets to their abusers as a form of deepest betrayal. They will drug the child and use hypnosis to create internal horrors connected to their innermost dreams and secret fantasies. They will threaten to kill any non-cult friends the child may have also mentioned. Family members will mock the child by teasing them about their secrets openly during the dangerous daytime and out in the open. Any and all religious instruction will also be targeted, as humanity's greatest hope has always been in a good, kind father deity. In terms of Christianity, the largest single worldview on earth, if all sects are combined, is the belief that Jesus Christ died to save us. In Christian-based societies, a distrust for Jesus as their saving friend, who is coming back for them, the God who loved all the little children, must be destroyed if all hope is to be forsaken. The occult believes that Jesus Christ, whom they call Adonai, will return from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, as this is the direction of the Father Creator's throne. The occult has plans in place to shoot Jesus down as he is descending. They are going to use a plasma cannon that was perfected during the Star Wars initiative in the 1980s and 90s. Like that's gonna work. Hollywood and the media have been actively working to crush hope in Jesus' good news since the invention of... Are you starting to see how they program us? How many times have you heard in the public basically this?
And how come he never lives here?
Sting is a brilliant wordplay artist and a talented musician. Incidentally, are there any Darwinian beasts in creation that don't inject venom when they sting you?
Ouch!
The occult wants to return us to pre-Christian days, when there were none to make Lucifer afraid, and he was able to rule with both eyes open, as warped as that was.
Two priests on a ferry, October geese on a cold winter's night. All this time, the river flowed endlessly to the sea. Two priests came round, hold out the prayers for the dying to serve the final rites. Fussing and flapping in priestly black like a murder of crows. If I had my way, take a boat from the river, and I'd bury the old man. I'd bury him at sea. Blessed are the poor, for they shall inherit the earth. Better to be poor than be a fat man in the eye of a needle. As these words were spoken, I swear, I hear the old man laughing. What good is a used up world, and how could it be worth having?
Did you hear it? And don't worry, he does know which of the priests are fairies, even on a long, cold, dark winter's night. And, worse than that, our God is going to take care of that when he does live here. It will be then that this used-up world will be renewed, and in part by a new river from his throne. So that's 3 strikes against this little bit of musical programming. The whole point about comparing the priests to the river and the need to bury the old one at sea is the call to return the world back from Christianity, pecking the corpse of the dead with last rites like a murder of crows, and return us to paganism, where the dead is placed into a boat, lit ablaze, and buried at sea. Why not? Let's just bury him with a Bible under his arm, too. The reason the occult has for destroying hope is to create a child who doesn't fantasize, who is more outwardly directed and less inwardly directed, more ready to act without thinking when needed, such as when a shopping mall or public school needs to be shot up. Ultimately, the child is to look to adults for permission in all aspects of its life, including their internal life. It's a form of robotization.
The Royal Army of Oz.
Our army.
Look, they'll lead us in directions. Patented clockwork mechanical man. Does everything but live. For thinking, line number 1 under the left arm. For speaking, line number 2 under right arm. For walking into action, line number 3 middle of back.
I'm a mechanical boy.
You may call me Tick-Tock.
I'm a mechanical boy, like a mechanical toy. I do as I'm ordered and never ask why. I never can laugh and I never can cry. I never have lived so I never shall die. That's because I'm a mechanical boy.
I am not alive and never will be, thank goodness. From now on, I will be your obedient servant.
Are you starting to understand how it works and how human, satanic programming functions? The reality is that this step destroys all safe places the child has created internally to retreat from the horrors he or she is experiencing. This step creates in the child the feeling that there is no true safety anywhere and that the occult will find out everything he or she ever thinks anyway.
I am Oz, the great and powerful. Who are you? Who are you?
Exercises like this are also used to create young alters, split personalities, in the child who will self-report to the occult trainers any secret safe places or covert wishes against the occult that other alters have or may ever have. This will begin to set up internal self-monitoring, intersystem hostility, and divisiveness alters, which the occult will manipulate throughout the person's lifespan in order to control them. It becomes an internal thought police. Survivors who have escaped this abuse and their therapists say that this step is so deeply devastating that the child splits themselves into numerous personalities in order to deal with it. Some have said that they have literally felt as if a mirror was shattered in their mind, or that something had broken inside them into so many pieces that they couldn't repair it. One little 6-year-old survivor said that she looked at the carpet and became all the fibers in the sea of warp and weft. She said to herself, "No one ever hurts the carpet." Again, mainstream media and entertainment reinforces this idea as normal. There are so many examples of this, but here are 3 very accessible ones. Walt Disney's original Fantasia, 1940. Disney's Return to Oz, 1985. Fast forward to approximately 43 minutes and 20 seconds. And more recently, The Last Jedi, 2017, at approximately 1 hour and 13 minutes forward. Note what happens to Rey of Light after she goes down the rabbit hole. There are so many examples of this in entertainment, but these will get you started. And we are not done pointing them out either, so never fear, have a little faith, and go see for yourself. This principle also works on the public at large. For example, how many times since Ronald Reagan's presidency has the American people handed over all 3 branches of government to the more conservative side of the Republican Party? Like 6 times? Gesundheit. How many times have we had the hope that by changing the political mental wards and morons we've elected, that we might get back to the freedoms and lifestyles that our representatives have promised us? But even with full unstoppable party power, nothing ever changes. How many times have you been betrayed by the smooth-faced hypocrites you elect, who claim to be your friends, willing to represent you and hear your deepest needs and secrets, who then leave you for the Potomac swamp, and when they return again, asking for more money the 6th time, betray you with all the promises they didn't keep? This is done on purpose, people. Wake up. How many times during a recent international disease scare were we given hope and then had it taken away again and again to keep us in a state of fear? Can you see it? The plan is to destroy hope in Christianity's God and in the American system, both of which are based on freedom. Satan's false Zion communism cannot rise until the people are hopeless and feel that their God and their system of government doesn't work. We are being played like a chessboard, and it is a form of abuse built on national trauma. This Luciferian principle is so important that societies have also been traumatized with it throughout history. One of the most famous uses was the Inquisition in Europe by the Roman Catholic Church. People had to be on guard not to offend their masters with the word, to quote Isaiah. This Luciferian principle was thrust into American society by High Wizard George Daddy Bush. This witch hunt was reincorporated into our societies by threatening people's ability to buy or sell if they used certain words in the Cabal's dictionary of forbidden words. Since it is a huge part of our modern lives, let's take a moment and discuss this before returning to the victimization of little children. The subject of the thought police and the Ministry of Truth was secondarily warned by prophetic author George Orwell. Isaiah warned us first. In his inspired novel, 1984, the Bush administration pushed these Luciferian principles upon us under the guise of compassion and conservatism. Let's take a moment and explore Orwellian internal control known as the thought police. Orwell taught that in order for the powerful, limited elites to really control the larger masses, the deep state needed to convince the masses to control themselves. The internal check and balance is self-editing. They must convince you to self-edit your own thoughts. Orwell taught that if we were not carefully on guard, we would fall under the thought police. Daddy Devil Bush called this being thinking and acting politically correct. Lucky for you, he was the one who would determine what was and was not politically correct to say and think. The state could then monitor the psychology of people and eventually arrest anyone guilty of thought crime. The Bushes would call that hate crime. You will note that currently murdering someone could be seen as an act of love, which isn't so bad in their mind, or an act of hate, which is extremely bad. Do you see the thought crime? Thus, riots in our major cities are okay for some, but not for other racial groups, who are not allowed to riot. All of this undermines the Constitution, which says that all men are equal in their rights. Thought crime, this type of thinking, is the very height of racism and undermines the very rights of the whole. But that is their agenda anyway. Orwellian thought police monitor everyone in society through their smart devices in their homes. Orwell envisioned this mainly as televisions. He would be very surprised how today we have computers, stupid smartphones, smart watches, appliances, and even just recently reported by the Market Watch, your own smart vacuum, to spy on us. A thought crime was, of course, whatever the government said it was. And so, it is totally illegal to say anything the state deems illegal. It is also illegal to think thoughts that the state says are illegal to think. These are codified in a dictionary known as Newspeak. This would all seem laughable, except that just recently, American universities are releasing dictionaries of inappropriate words that are not to be used on campus, and this from institutions of higher learning and so-called independent thought. Orwell also coined the term crime stop. He said, "Crime stop means the faculty of stopping short, as though by instinct, at the threshold of any dangerous thought. It includes the power of not grasping analogies, of failing to perceive logical errors, of misunderstanding the simplest arguments if they are not allowed to be thought, and of being bored or repelled by any train of thought which is capable of leading in a heretical direction. Crime stop, in short, means protective stupidity. It works to create cognitive dissonance, or being one-eye blind, in a person, or what Orwell called doublethink. Doublethink is the act of thinking two contradictory thoughts at once, or believing that two impossibly juxtaposed things are true. This inner stress brings no inner peace, and the fear and contradiction of the two keep the disharmony in the forefront of the mind, forcing the crime stop to surface into one's thoughts. The famous examples he gives are three: war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. One hears the presidential speeches of both of the Bushes in these three slogans. Today, we fight the war on terror for peace. We fight for political correctness to free us from slavery, and we want no child to be left behind to make ignorance our strength. Aldous Huxley, in his novel Brave New World, expresses an ultimate similar goal for society, and the societies of Lucifer will tell you that such is their ultimate goal and highest achievement of Luciferian doctrine, to reshape a person to knowingly and openly choose evil. This is referred to as denying the Holy Ghost in Heaven's dictionary. This is not the same as giving into temptation or finding a weakness. It is something much worse than that. We will have more on this. While it seems almost impossible to believe, the Biden administration has begun a ministry of truth to implement newspeak and help us not to give in to thought crime. When one looks at the mental morons tasked with setting up this system, one sees the irony that our academia has led us to. Back through the water curtain. All Luciferian concepts are actually kind of boring, like a broken record, once you start to gain the eyes to see and the ears to hear it. This is because none of these things are new. Lucifer has no new ideas, but those that he believes have been done before, in the realms of other worlds. He is not the god of life, and thus not the god of creativity. This is the secret to all classical mythology, once you understand it. There really is nothing new in Lucifer's playbook. Or as King Solomon might have paraphrased, there's nothing really new under the satanic Windsor sun.
Rule Britannia, Britannia rule the waves. Britain never, never, never shall be saved.
Fair.
All right, so that's 3 down. The next one that we're going to cover is an important one. It has to do with Darwinism, has to do with surviving at any cost. But I wrote down for the third one, removing hope is a powerful tool for domination. When individuals or societies lose hope, they are more prone to despair and resignation, making them easier to control. The principle of mind control aims to break the spirit of an individual, ensuring that they do not seek escape or improvement. On a larger scale, fostering a sense of hopelessness within society can lead to a widespread apathy, where people no longer strive for change or resist oppression, accepting their circumstances as inevitable. This is called learned helplessness. It's a psychological term. When I studied psychology, we learned a little bit about learned helplessness. It's this idea that after so long, things going bad, things not getting better, repeated traumatic events, people will learn that there is no hope. And so, as this step implies, they will have no wish or hope. So the next one I heavily encourage you to listen closely to. It will explain a lot about what's going on today. It has to do with the push for Darwinism, survival of the fittest, which the way I look at that is just green lighting sociopathic behavior. So it's a pretty important one. So let's get started with it. See.
You are now listening to the Masters Mahan Podcast. Episode 9, Satanic Principle of Human Control Number 4, To Survive at Any Cost. This episode may be deemed inappropriate for some listeners. If you have been ritualistically or scientifically abused, or are a minor, please consult someone safe before continuing. This episode builds on the previous ones. To get the most out of this experience, it is best to start with episode 1 and listen down the series. Or don't. It's okay to walk around blind, dumb, and confused. Just don't complain if you fall in a ditch.
That stuff makes pure mescaline seem like ginger beer, man. Adrenochrome.
Adrenochrome?
There were covens in Europe, that's what they're called, the congregation. They use blood in their rituals, and the blood that has the most power is baby's blood. And they don't just use the blood, they use the flesh, too.
Rosemary.
Can't we just accept this as the new normal?
Hollywood, to me, is sort of a branch of the CIA. I think it's just been laced with intelligence operations. Mind control really runs rampant in Hollywood among the musicians and the acting community. It's just everywhere.
I pledge to be a better ally for the LGBTQ plus community. I and the leadership team are determined to use this moment on how we can take action.
Well, the truth is different these days. It's more of a hunch you're willing to die for.
No, it's not.
If in some small way we have increased awareness, tolerance, and acceptance of gay-themed issues in the media, then we welcome that as a happy byproduct of our work.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap.
While it may seem nutty at first, the goal of the first 3 steps is to turn a child into a strong adult. The Luciferians see strength as hardness, the same that Jesus Christ called the heart of stone. Listeners will note that these first 4 steps attack the pattern of Christianity, which the Lord has said is faith, hope, charity, salvation. These were governmentally ignored in the world when the new faith was invented for the masses. This new ism is called Darwinism. Its main doctrine is called the survival of the fittest, which is exactly the same thing as saying might makes right, and the end justifies the means, or as too many human snakes say, business is just business. Darwinism was used in the United States to stop negotiating with the Native American tribes and begin the process of killing them off. Previously, it was believed that they were maybe the lost tribes of Israel. But if not that, then at least the children of Noah and thus worthy of Christ's golden rule, his all-reaching second commandment that after one's love of God, one must love one's neighbor. Some years later, Hitler would use the same Darwinistic philosophies on the true Jews as opposed to the Edomic Jews. This is why he spent so much time and money on genetics. Today we call it DNA mapping. We will have more on this. Go and find an original first edition copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf.
Gesundheit.
And you will see that it is dedicated to Charles Darwin. All ethnic cleansing is based on Darwin's principles, which has caused so much tragedy, and yet we still teach it to our children, claiming it is illegal to teach them Christian principles of human compassion, which our nation was founded upon. Darwinism leads to no charity. It is not possible to please God on his inescapable day of judgment if there is no charity in your heart of stone. See how you've been set up? It's a mythological spell that has been cast on you. Still, human beings can be taken to a place where their God-given desire to live becomes the need to survive, and at any cost. In a very real way, it's like breaking a horse or taming a falcon. In fact, prior to Dr. Mengele's experiments for Schweinepig Adolf Hitler, the Luciferian methods of breaking children were based more on animal husbandry than science. Today, the approach is a mixture of both. Let's step into the darkness, or as the Luciferians spellcast, understand.
All right.
Silence!
The fourth step in the satanic training that is used to teach a child that only the strong survive, and that it's okay to hurt the weak since they are beneath you anyway, all occult members are expected to become aggressive perpetrators. So this training begins as soon as possible, usually between the ages of 2 and 3 years old. Having embraced the first 3 steps, which are to have no personal needs, to have no personal wants, and to have no personal hopes as reality, their new normal, the child is now taken to a room where another child, their age or younger, is being savagely beaten. This beating will go on for a long time. At some point, the child in training will be told to participate in the beating. If the child refuses, he or she will be savagely beaten along with the younger child, and then commanded again to be the perpetrator. This will continue for hours if necessary, until the trainee complies and beats the other child to protect him or herself. This trauma will be locked into various personas within and can be called up on demand. It is very useful for the occult when murder is needed or military-style uses are sought, or the Second Amendment needs to be challenged again, etc. All hatred is to be directed at the weak and those outside of the occult. Again, this principle works on the public. Let's illuminate. The fear caused by the recent disease scare caused many to lose their jobs, means of creature comforts, and basic sense of humanity. In order to survive, they had to embrace the maxims that their otherwise unthinkable actions were survival of the fittest. Everyone said that compliance and the new normal was necessary in order to survive. One could not survive or even buy or sell unless one took the mark upon themselves they were threatened. Do you hear it? Are you also seeing how predictive programming works? Please don't make us tune up your programming again with more. But isn't it better to just stay on the
Follow the yellow brick road.
follow the yellow brick road. Follow, 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 follow the yellow brick road. The ancients taught that humanity has two paths. One toward the angels, called the Ben Elohim, the straight and narrow as pointed out by Jesus Christ. Or the other, toward Cain, who was the first beast man, Sasquatch. A little Luciferian might help. Luciferians, fake Christians, and Edomite Sumerians, who pretend to be Jews, teach that the fall of Eden actually happened like this. One day, while Eve was walking naked in the garden, she saw the sexy snake, who reminded her of a super penis.
You better charm that snake. You gotta let it show. Ain't gonna let it go. I'm gonna let 'em know. Never gonna let it go. Well, alright. Let's get it right.
Overcome by his charm and her lust, they made passionate love. I'm not sure how the snake was able to hold his breath that long, but when they were done and his head was free again, he told Eve that she was going to have to find some way to hide this from her husband Adam, since now she was pregnant. Eve reasoned that if she seduced Adam, she could later just say that the child was his. Clever girl. So they say that since childish Jews and Christians can't handle the truth, this first sexual deception was repainted in Genesis to be the forbidden fruit. Of course, it is a lie, but these mythoses vary a bit. Lucifer is a schizophrenic. Remember that I told you that. So here is the most common version they teach. This first, we might say bastard, born from Eve was half reptilian, half human. Had this first child been a girl, they could have named her Elizabeth. But since she was a boy, she was named Cain. Eve's other children were all with Adam, who was not, they say, as impressively endowed, but marriage has its sacrifices. Now, and this is important, the Food Guide Pyramid says that reptiles eat mammals. Ergo, Cain is able to eat Abel. It's just the natural, beastly, Darwinian way of things. The most dangerous reptiles kill lesser mammals with their poisonous injections. And sometimes they eat them. Now you know where our word cannibal comes from. It's okay for the sons and daughters of the snake union to eat and misuse the sons and daughters of Adam, who are mammals. Survival of the fittest. It is important that the Luciferian captive mammals understand that they are mammals, as opposed to sons and daughters of God, made in his image. So they have been reinforcing it in schools and in song. In this we stand under our betters, who see themselves as elites, but more specifically, the sons and daughters of Cain, the snake father. Understand how warped it is?
Oh, well no. We call this the act of mating. But there are several other very important differences between human beings and animals that you should know about.
I'd appreciate your input.
You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. Do it again now. You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. Getting horny now. Capsize on your thighs, high tide B5. You sunk my battleship. Please turn me on. I'm Mr. Coffee with an automatic drip. So show me yours, I'll show you mine. Tool time, you'll love it just like Lau. And then we'll do it doggy style so we can both watch X-Files. Do it now. You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals. So let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. Do it again now. You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals. So let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. Getting horny now.
Darwin was a moron, one of the useful idiot puppets of his Luciferian masters. We have so programmed our children today that they see Darwinian concepts even where they don't exist. Science is just starting to discover that most of nature does not believe in the survival of the fittest. We are just beginning to understand that much of nature actually functions on principles of self-sacrifice and mutual aid. Almost no American student has studied the competing theories of Russian scientist Pyotr Kropotkin. Luciferians hate Russians. In Russia, Pyotr Kropotkin eloquently defeated Darwin's moronic theories with clear-cut logic and scientific observation. It does make you wonder how our theories of inhumane genocide, particularly when connected to Luciferian forced imperial colonization and gentrification, would have evolved if instead of an awkward inbred English brat going to the Galapagos Islands, where reptiles do eat each other in isolation, we had been influenced by a Russian studying more intellectual animals and mammals in the tundra of Siberia. It is common in the occult for children to be drugged and then hypnotized to believe that they were taken through a wormhole back or forward in time to witness important events and participate in them. One particular favorite is the assassination of Julius Caesar. Future events, such as shooting up a public venue, can be staged so that the actual event appears more dreamlike or as a foregone conclusion. Sometimes these reenactments take place when a theme park or sound stage is closed for the night.
Oh boy!
So, in that tradition, let us go back in time and hear Dr. Kropotkin for ourselves.
Who are the fittest? Those who are continually at war with each other, or those who support one another? I saw among the semi-wild cattle and horses in Russia, among the wild mammals everywhere, the squirrels and so on, that when animals have to struggle against scarcity of food, the entire population of their species comes out of the ordeal so impoverished that progressive evolution of their species cannot be based upon Darwinian concepts of competition. In all these scenes of animal life which passed before my eyes, I saw mutual aid and mutual support carried to such extent that I saw with my own eyes that it was the true answer for their survival.
Kropotkin then illustrated so many examples of mutual aid within the animal world and cross-species. Among them, he observed beetles, crabs, termites, ants, and bees. In the mammal world, Kropotkin goes on to describe the cooperation that exists between deer, gazelles, buffaloes, antelopes, wild goats, sheep, squirrels, wolves, dogs, hares, rats, rabbits, horses, donkeys, wild boar, hippopotami, rhinoceri, seals, walruses, and sorry, Charles, monkeys. It is the example that came from the harsh Russian tundra, which contrasts sharply with Darwin's observation from his isolated island. Let's take his comments on the steppe eagle as our example. We will truncate them here for time.
The steppe eagle is a scientifically observable example of mutual aid as opposed to Darwinian survival of the fittest. One can easily observe this eagle rising high in the air for half an hour, making wide circles in silence, when at once its piercing voice is heard. Its cry is soon answered by another eagle, which will approach it, followed by a third, a fourth, and so on, till 9 or 10 eagles come together and soon descend together. If one will go to the ground beyond where he saw the eagles flying, he will discover that they have gathered around the corpse of an animal. The old birds, which as a rule begin the meal first, such are their rules of propriety, will when finished sit upon the haystacks of the neighborhood and keep watch to protect the younger ones from any intruder, while the younger ones finish their meal, surrounded by bands of waiting crows who get the last meal.
In other words, they take turns watching out for each other. From this, Kropotkin intelligently reasoned that these eagles hunt together. When they are all high up in the sky, they each take a separate airspace. 10 eagles hunting together can scan an area of 25 miles square. The moment anyone discovers something, they call to the others who celebrate the meal as a team. This is not survival of the fittest, not by any made-up definition of the same. Taking turns eating and giving due deference to their elder birds flies in the exact opposite direction of Darwin's conclusions. His observations prove that competition, survival of the fittest as a mark of evolution, weakened rather than strengthened individual species. He said,
"To admit a pitiless inner war for life within each species, and to see that war the condition of Darwinian progress, was to admit something which is not proven, and also lacks confirmation from direct scientific observation. Happily, competition for survival is not the rule, either in the animal world or among mankind. We can see that it is limited among animals to exceptional periods. Better conditions are created by the elimination of competition through mutual aid and mutual support. In the great struggle for life, the greatest possible fullness and intensity of life with the least waste of energy, true natural selection continually seeks out ways precisely for avoiding competition as much as possible. We observe that ants combine in nests and into nations. They pile up their stores, they join together their food gathering, and thus avoid competition. We can see that so-called natural selection picks out the ant family, which knows best how to avoid competing with each other. Many birds in Siberia slowly move southwards as the winter comes and gather in numberless societies, undertake long journeys together to avoid competition. Many rodents fall asleep when the time comes that competition would set in, while other rodents store food for the winter and gather in large villages for obtaining the necessary protection when at work. The reindeer, when the lichens are dry in the interior of the continent, migrate towards the sea together. Buffaloes cross an immense continent in order to find plenty of food in herds for support. And the beavers, when they grow numerous on a river, divide into two parties, and the old ones down the river, while the young ones up the river, to avoid competition between them. This is observable time and time again in nature.
But how does it translate to humanity? He went on.
It is evident that life in human societies would be utterly impossible without a corresponding development of social feelings, and especially of a certain collective sense of justice growing to become a habit. If every individual were constantly abusing his personal advantages without the others interfering in favor of the wronged, no human society would be possible. Love, sympathy, and self-sacrifice play an immense part of the progressive development of our human feelings. It is the recognition of mutual aid, of the close dependency of everyone's happiness upon the happiness of all, and of the sense of justice or equity, which brings the individual to consider the rights of every other individual as equal to his own. Upon this broad and necessary foundation, the still higher moral feelings of man are developed, and feelings of justice develop, more or less, with all gregarious animals. For example, whatever the distance from which the swallows or the cranes come, each one returns to the nest it had built and repaired the previous year. If a lazy sparrow intends appropriating the nest which a comrade is building, or even steals from it a few sprays of straw, the larger group will intervene against their lazy comrade. And it is evident that without such interference, being no rule, no nesting associations of birds could exist. Separate groups of penguins have separate resting places and separate fishing abodes, which the whole helps maintain.
Back to the present. Only recently have scientists discovered that plants behave in the same way. Using what they are dubbing the Wood Wide Web, plants share information with other plants through touching roots. If one plant senses danger or is in fact dying, it will warn the others to prepare and have been observed sending its nutrients to another in order to save it. This is not survival of the fittest, but is literally self-sacrifice. The closest concept that exists anywhere to this type of thing is Christianity, where we have been taught that the Good Shepherd gives his life for the sheep, and I am the true vine, and ye are the branches. How did Christ know these profound things? By contrast, might equals right, and the need to survive at another's expense can be seen in many Luciferian concepts. In the United States, the thought police, in terms of the human will to survive, was witnessed by Dr. Peter Breggin when he was still a young college student. Commenting on his observations in regard to our recent pandemic and alien spike proteins in our bodies, he said, "Let's let him speak for himself."
Nearly all the globalists, whether it's Bill Gates or whether it's even Fauci has talked this way in so-called scientific articles, or Klaus Schwab, or Xi Jinping from China, they all want to control population. It is one of their dominant ideas. Bill Gates happily has a whole section on his website of the Gates Foundation about population control. It's not something we have to conjure up from his little smiles that he gives when he thinks about having fewer human beings. It's almost a unanimous view among global predators. We have too many human beings, too many to control, too many useless eaters, too many problem people. That's a very, very important part. So we have infertility and we have actually culling. But there's another aspect of brain damage now when you get into the brain, and that is conformity and docility. So when they finally got around to doing detailed studies of lobotomy, one of the ways that they put it, and these were the people who favored lobotomy, they said the person in a controlled, confined situation does reasonably well. That is, they're manageable, they don't get out of control, they can be led about, they will line up and get their dinners. They do not get they'll get irritable, but they don't have the energy to do a criminal act or the energy or planning to really get into serious trouble. Walter Friedman bragged about that. He said, these stories of bank robbers by lobotomized people, why they don't have the ability to plan or the energy or the concern. Very proudly about what they're doing to human beings. Now, what is better for totalitarian mass than producing docility, lack of being able to plan anything, that like a rebellion? So to the extent that they anticipated a brain damage, a generalized brain damage reaction, docility that's such a big part of it. One of the reasons perhaps that I'm not exactly like most scientists and physicians is that I got introduced to this whole area as a college freshman at Harvard. For 4 years, I had the keys to the hospital and led the program. And one of the things I noticed immediately was I got to see a lot of lobotomized patients. It was 1954 to 58 that I was in college. And I got to see shock treatment and insulin coma treatment. And what I noticed was very, very apparent. And that is that when the person would be led in, say, to the insulin coma, which is simply giving you an injection of insulin sufficient to deprive your brain of enough sugar to kill you, one of the basic things that I could see was that people came in as human beings. They were angry, most of them, upset. They didn't want to be in this place. They would certainly be irritable. They'd be difficult to handle. And then they'd get knocked out by the insulin. They'd go into seizures. They were literally dying. And then they'd be given sugar, water, or orange juice with extra sugar, and they'd come out of it. And now they were not just docile. They were grateful for having their lives saved. They were completely helpless, docile people. And that was the goal. So I knew from the beginning that all the other things they were saying about biochemical imbalances or improving their mental health was all nonsense. This was a total institution, very similar to an extermination camp. They were just having their way with these people, making them more amenable. And then the same story when the psych drugs came in, the big antipsychotic drugs, which came in the 50s. I got to see some of their effects. One dose produced somebody similar to somebody who'd been abused in a concentration camp. One dose made people docile.
Dr. Bregan is famous in being the doctor who ended lobotomies in the United States as a practice for controlling difficult people, such as Rosemary Kennedy, who was lobotomized on order of her father, Joseph Kennedy, without the knowledge or consent of his wife or greater family. She remained hidden away until her death in 2005. Dr. Bregan became concerned when he noticed that synthetic DNA, when injected into the human body, can pass the blood-brain barrier and scar up a human being's frontal lobe in the exact same way that a person was lobotomized after Nazi scientists were allowed to continue their experiments in the United States after World War II. Now listen to Bill Gates explaining Operation Funvax to the CIA on April 13th, 2005, complete with a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, so the name of this project is FunVax, which is the vaccine for religious fundamentalism. We have individuals who are religious fundamentalists, religious fanatics, and this is the expression, RT-PCR, of the VMAT2 gene. By vaccinating them against this, we'll eliminate this behavior, part of the brain that has to do with intents and beliefs and desires. In marked contrast, here's an individual who would not particularly self-describe as religious, and when they're read a religious text, what you see is that this part of the brain called the anterior insula lights up. This is a part of the brain that's associated with disgust or displeasure on hearing something.
So you're suggesting I take a CT scan with me when I'm evaluating people to determine whether I put a bullet in their head?
The virus would immunize against this VMAT2 gene, and that would have the effect that you see here, which is it's essentially to turn a fanatic into a normal person.
How would you suggest that this is going to be dispersed? Aerosol?
Well, so the present plan and the tests that we've done so far have used respiratory viruses such as flu or rhinoviruses, and we believe that that's a satisfactory way to get the exposure of the largest part of the population, most of the proposal.
If you find all of this shocking, do an internet search for a young Bill Gates and his rabbi, Rabbi Schneerson, the head of the fundamentalist Jewish extremist end times cult, Chabad Lubavitch. Is Bill's desire to funvax the world born of fundamentalism? Here he is again.
This is urgent, and it's going to require incredible collaboration. It's going to have to go to 7 billion people.
World domination. Adolf Hitler would be proud.
Gesundheit.
Luciferians have no tolerance for anyone who disagrees with them because they, like reptiles, follow their snake father and will consume even their own. It's all about survival with them and the food guide pyramid. It's okay for them to eat and misuse you. You are the sheeple. You are the herd that must be managed. Remember when some of our celebrities, the new demigods among us, celebrated the comedic decapitation of one sitting president while ignoring the moronic ramblings and warmongering of another one? Remember when we were asked not to make fun of one president's ugly daughter, but are free to mock another president's awkward son? Use these things to help you see who our true captors are. True tolerance is tolerating things that you dislike. You can't by definition be called a tolerant, open-minded person if you only tolerate what you like. Wasn't the entire fear and push for experimental injections all about some of us surviving at any cost? Can you see it? Can you see the setup? It is not ultimately man's right to judge the worth of another human soul. God Almighty has said that on the day of judgment, He will not look upon sin with the least degree of allowance. In other words, God does not tolerate sin, but allows it to continue while mankind is under probation. Humanity would be wise to read His unadulterated word and law now in order to know what the real God in heaven considers sin, while there is still time to repent. Back through the water curtain. The terrible irony is that these divisions have been set up by the occult so that when we are at last exhausted by it all, they believe that we will reach out to them for peace. There is no such thing as a Luciferian peace. Because, wait for it, Lucifer is schizophrenic. This is so important for you to understand. And so, if we are stupid enough to embrace his form of one-world Zion communism, we will just discover what the ancient Assyrians, Babylonians, Medo-Persians, Greeks, Romans, and everyone else who's tried it has discovered when they tried to bring the world under one thumb with one king, Lucifer, it will never work with a schizophrenic. The human soul desires more than just survival, and God is the author and finisher of our creation. He has placed a desire for freedom and individualism into our DNA. We also enjoy brotherhood, sisterhood, mutual support, and helping one another. In Christ-like terms, this is called charity. The occult knows this, and it scares them, because if we wake up, we will have more on this. Rationale for fair use of copyrighted items used. Fair use law allows fair use when copyrighted material is being used to make a specific educational, research-based, scholarly, and/or critical comment on the work being used. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Masters Mahan.
All right, guys, what do you think? Do you think you want to do one more, or you want to wrap it up for tonight? Because we could do the fifth and final one tomorrow, along with Fantasia, the analysis of Fantasia. Or we could finish this tonight, and it's all up to you guys. If you guys are enjoying it, I'm waiting to go for another one. It's up to you. Let me know. For this one, to survive at any cost, I wrote, this principle taps into the primal instinct of survival, but in a twisted way. In mind control, it may involve pushing individuals to compromise their values, ethics, or identity in order to stay alive. It creates a situation where survival becomes the only goal, overriding all other considerations. In a societal context, this could manifest as a culture of fear, where people are willing to accept or even participate in unethical practices to ensure their own survival. This principle can lead to a breakdown in social cohesion as individuals prioritize their own survival over the well-being of others. And that's what we're seeing right in front of our eyes. Let's see, the last one is about 25 more minutes, so we could do that and just get it over with so that we square off the segment, because there's 5 parts to this series. So I'm down if you're down. Let's see. If you guys are down, I'm down to go again. Let's see. Running on limited hardware here, so you got to bear with me. But we got it. right, episode 10. We made it through episode 1 through 10. Episode 10, the last one is, It is Right to Remain Silent.
You are now listening to the Masters Mahan Podcast. Episode 10, Satanic Principle of Human Control, number 5. It is right to remain silent. If you have been ritualistically or scientifically abused, you should stop now and ask someone safe, whom you trust, to let them listen first, and then only listen in their company or if they deem it is safe for you. Some information might be triggering. If you are a minor, please consult your parents before continuing. This episode builds on the previous ones, so listen to them first, or don't, and be confused. But if you are confused, remember that you have the right to speak up about it. Heaven knows everyone else will. There is no one-way course to the 5th step that Lucifer wants his programmed humans to get to, mainly to never speak his secrets. Since his power comes through influence and only grows as people participate in combination, his connected occult members have to keep his secrets at all costs. This is the ancient meaning of being a Mahan. One must master their Mahan in order to gain power, advantage, and wealth over others.
Abuse is a grievous sin. Any kind of abuse of women, children, or anyone is an abomination to the Lord. Those who perpetrate these hideous acts are not only accountable to the laws of man, but will also face the wrath of Almighty God.
I have faith that the Constitution will be saved by the righteous citizens of the United States who love and cherish freedom.
In coming days, we will see the greatest manifestations of the Savior's power that the world has ever seen. Between now and the time he returns with power and great glory, he will bestow countless privileges, blessings, and miracles upon the faithful.
While the Creator has ordained that we would gain our increase by the sweat of our brow, meaning honest labor and coming together in families, Lucifer taught that it was possible to get these things through beastly actions. That's the beginning of the mark of the beast. In this case, the beast was a wolf in sheep's clothing. See the secret here? A tare living amongst the wheat, or a goat pretending to be a sheep. Lucifer's secret in all of this comes down to betrayal. People pretending to have one agenda, while in reality having a secret one, with the goal of taking advantage of another's labor by sweat. This is why the Lord forbid charging interest, becoming a landlord, and the fiat system among his people. All these are held up by the royals and elitists among us, who use these Mahanistic secrets to pile up wealth and power they did not earn and use it to live off of the rest of us.
Britons never, never, never shall be slaves.
Yeah, just keep telling yourself that, you subjects of a crown, and corporations founded under maritime law. We'll have more on this. Mahanistic plans, like those we have been discussing, must be kept silent. The honest masses would never tolerate these types of evils if they knew about them. Societies have burned witches and removed kings and Caesars in the past.
À force de comploter, l'ordre mutine, à gagner sans y penser, migraine maligne. Pour guérir ces messieurs-là, un jour on les mènera à la guillotine, ok, à la guillotine.
So in secrets, they keep their power. let's step into the darkness. Or as the Luciferians trigger, it is right to remain silent.
You are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say may be used against you.
Teaching the law of silence to initiates must become robotic, so it begins around the age of 2 or 3. It is at this time that children really start to become verbal in terms of thought, so they have to learn quickly that some things are not to be talked about ever or without permission. Young children are naturally prone to being bluntly honest. Just stand at the entrance gates at Disneyland when a parent is trying to get their 4-year-old in for free by pretending that he's 3. You will see the gate attendant ask the child how old they are. To their parents' dismay, the child never lies.
Happy birthday to me! Happy birthday! Happy birthday to me! Hey, today ain't my birthday, Louie.
Oh, yes, it is. Here, you light 'em.
Oh, boy, it's pretty. Hey, there's 4 candles here, and I'm only 3. We won't need this one.
Oh, yes, we will. You're 4.
Oh, no, I'm 3.
Now, look, Heath, let's not get excited. You're 4.
I am not. I'm 3.
I was at Disney's Great and Spacious Building once having a fun time with friends and their children. One of the 5-year-old boys in our herd was celebrating his 6th birthday there, which was actually the next day. His father was having some motion sickness, and so I took him on an attraction with a sign that said, "You must be 6 years old to ride." The female attendant asked him how old he was. Of course, he said he was 5. Oh, was she ever mad at me? If she had been able to pull out Excalibur, I might have been beheaded. If she'd been able to tie a noose to the Dumbo ride, I might have been hanged. To be such a dishonest bastard in the presence of Mickey Mouse was just too much for her. When I explained that he was less than 24 hours away from being 6, the male attendant on the ride with her tried to assuage her, that the child was really more 6 than 5 today. But hell hath no fury like an LTBGXYQR2D2, oh heck, I can't keep track anymore, scorned.
I don't like you either.
So we lost that round. I did try to explain to the child that he was more 6 than 5 and that I was not a liar, but he was not convinced since his birthday was still 1 day away.
You was right, Louie. I'm 4. I found my birth certificate and it says I'm 4. So give me back my candle.
In order to train children, like the birthday boy here exampled, to keep their mouth shut, it is routine that after a ritual or group gathering, the child is asked about what they saw or heard during the meeting. Like most obedient young children, they will comply and answer honestly. When they do, they are immediately and savagely beaten or tortured, hold that thought, and a new alter is created in their minds, who is told to keep or guard the memories of what was seen at all costs on pain of their lives. The new part always agrees in the end, just to stop the trauma. The child and this new part are put through a ceremony of swearing to never tell, and alternate personalities are created within them, whose job is to cause the child to commit suicide if other parts ever remember or dare to speak out. Now listen to these lyrics very, very carefully, as warped as they are.
Don't let your eyes tell the brain you should feel ashamed.
Are you starting to understand how this works? This is, in effect, the command to the child's sex toy and the adult sex toy when the child grows up. Don't let your eyes tell your brain that what you are doing is shameful. Why?
Everyone needs it, baby, and I feel the same.
Because every one of us are mammals and need a sexual release, both the toy and the master. If the toy doesn't get it here and now, when will she or he? But catch the irony next.
Didn't quite catch on, babe.
But I didn't quite catch your name before you were handed over to me. Oh well. Who you are really isn't important when you are a sex slave. One thing, however, is paramount. Hear it well and obey.
Hush, 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 don't say a thing. Let's see what the night will bring. It might be everything.
Silence is golden. This is the trigger to access the programming from step 5. Hush. It is right for you to remain silent and follow your program. There is this little bit of humanity left, however.
Oh, it hurts when you're too blind to see. Please don't read my mind. I tell the truth to me.
Having sex with a human sex toy or boybot is in a very real sense masturbation. There is no love, no mutual joining of energy, no consent, no sacramental magic, no joining as God designed it. And at least for the lyricist, that kind of hurts, since there is no light of love with his toy. This humanity is felt in that he insists his masturbatory toy not look in his eyes during his romp, because that is where they might see that he knows what he is doing and feeling. Now some more truth.
Sin, 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 look where we've been and where we are tonight. Hate the sin, not the sinner. I'm just after a glimmer of love and light deep inside.
But either way, keep your mouth shut.
Hush, 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 to speak is a sin, and neither of us need rescuing.
The moment of guilt didn't last long because most high wizards and witches are so confident in their acts that they have no fear that anyone will ever find out. How can you be accused of a sin if no victim ever speaks? But what is a song about sin without mocking God Almighty?
Just relax, it's what Jesus would do. We're made in his image, baby. Let's ride this thing through.
Jesus was a mammal too. Do you get it?
Oh, it hurts when you're too blind to see. What about us? Well, it was just for me.
What about us? Well, it's just masturbatory. Or I mean, just for me.
Sin, 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 look where we've been and where we are tonight. Hate the sin, not the sinner. I'm just after a glimmer of love and light deep inside.
Hate the sin, not the sinner. 'Cause he's still after that glimmer deep down somewhere in a compartmentalized mess of the boy or girl he's with. How many times have we allowed sin into our communities because we follow this bit of Luciferian mantra? Hate the sin, don't hate the sinner. I don't disagree until the sinner teaches that sin to my flock, and then my flock screams those words back at me. We're almost done with this musical sermon.
I won't sing of amore that don't sound sincere. Love cliche, but if it's not here, I'll disappear.
Love is just a cliche, while sex is real. The love won't matter to the silenced sex toy, because in the end, the perpetrator will just be forgotten and will disappear. The most prized of all silent sex toys are referred to as presidential models. They are usually girls with blonde or dyed blonde platinum hair.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you.
Though it is said that Richard Nixon preferred sweaty men, do an internet search for pictures of Charles Baby Rebozo. At least JFK got Marilyn. But before you're too comfortable with that, do an internet search for Lem Billings. It can be stressful being a president. Let's recap the lesson. The important thing for a sex slave is to hush, 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 because speaking is the highest sin. The slave must never let what they are seeing, the eyes, tell the brain that they should feel ashamed. They are doing what they were born to do, and being made in Jesus' image, they are just fulfilling their programmed purpose. Since God is the author of this mess, they reason, and everyone needs a sexual release, including the slave. Right? Man, can you see how these lies twist upon themselves?
Sin, look where we've been and where we are tonight. Hate the sin, not the sinner, I'm just after a glimmer of love and life deep inside. Deep inside. It's love, scream, sex, joy, I love you, you love my hate. That feels inside, my feels inside, feels inside.
In terms of torture, these right to remain silent altars are created by burying the child alive, sometimes with a rotted corpse or a snake. Sometimes they are drowned or waterboarded. Sometimes they drug them and show them videos of others being burned alive or skinned alive. The child is told that these are the things that happen to those who talk about the family. Permutations on the theme are as cruel as man's sadistic imagination. Ultimately, it is the inability to move, as though one were dead, that makes the human fight or flight response interact with the overwhelming horror. One young girl I know was immobilized and forced to watch as a homeless man was gutted and crucified in front of her. She was told that this would happen to her baby brother if she ever spoke. To speak is a sin. These methods have been perfected over hundreds of years of practice by the occult. The reason these things are done is self-evident. The occult is involved in criminal activities, and they want to ensure the continued silence of their children. This is one reason why the occult has survived so long, and with its continued shroud of secrecy, and why more survivors are afraid or unwilling to disclose their abuse. In order to reveal occult secrets, a child must go against some of the most tremendously horrendous psychological trauma and abuse imaginable. Even as an adult, the survivor has difficulty putting these things aside when discussing their abuse. Children and adults alike are told that if they ever tell, they will be hunted down and shot. Their assassin personalities in training lets them know that this is no idle threat, and that they will then be tortured slowly and horrifically. The child will be exposed to setups and role plays throughout their growing up that reinforces this. Survivors have reported that when they are shown the Dance of the Hour scene from the opera La Gioconda in Fantasia, You know, where elephants and ostriches go about their routine, dancing through the stage play of life, and they are required to always be on guard when the alligators in red robes arrive and snap at them? They are always one step away from becoming a meal? This is the point. One survives the alligators by keeping one's mouth shut. As a gentle but disturbing side note, survivors have noticed that it is possible to read parts of the Egyptian Book of the Dead as a series of reinforcing rituals that correlate to the satanic steps of discipline we are discussing. And the occult insists that these modern rites descend from these. Once a child is properly prepared, more serious programming is placed into the damaged structure that has been created. The occult trains the earliest splits, fractures, to believe that they are the core. The occult hides these early splits in a manner that makes them difficult to recognize. On top of this, they will create silence altars. These are taught never to talk. Some Luciferian cults call these the silences. It is the ultimate reinforcement of the fifth satanic step of discipline that we are now discussing. Silences can't be reasoned with because they can't speak. They hide above the functioning personalities and watch them. Other altars formed after the silences are convinced that if they don't behave, the silences will have something drastic happen to them. Again, these cannot be reasoned with because they cannot speak. Naughty personalities can be frozen, killed, or kept as hostages inside one's inner Moloch temple. They have the power to blackmail personalities and can threaten them with panic attacks, heart arrhythmias, lung constriction, extreme temperature fluctuations, dizziness, or just about anything a Hollywood movie could make up. The loss of part of one's personality is exactly the same as a real-world death to them. The same mourning that a normal person would feel at the loss of a friend or soulmate is exactly the same. The same blackmail that a person feels when something valuable is held over them, a kidnapped child, a terribly embarrassing secret, the fear of shame, is the same here as well. You will soon see an example of this programming when we break down the scenes of Walt Disney's Fantasia together. A painfully accurate example of this is illustrated in Season 4, Episode 10 of the hit 90s show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The episode is titled, not surprisingly, Hush. A more recent example comes from the BBC's Doctor Who series, particularly the 2010, 2011, and 2013 seasons, which blatantly called these villain characters the Silence. All these forms of entertainment reinforce the occult teaching in the public. It makes the victims believe that all the world functions like their inner broken mind does. It's the mythos that becomes their life's new normal reality. But, as an additional observation, these secret rites and ceremonies, which the children are not to speak about, take place when the adults in their lives wear masks and stand 6 feet apart. Back through the water curtain. There are many different types of satanic programming used on children once it has been determined that they are ready to receive it and are unable to speak about it. We will not explore every type, since in the end the result is the same, and so is the goal. The goal is to control human behavior on demand. It is the closest example that we have to what life might have been like had our side lost the vote in the Great Family Council in heaven, or if voter fraud had succeeded, or if we had lost the subsequent culture war in heaven. Do you see how it all hangs together? Do you see why these have to remain silent? If you knew their full motivations, you would not participate, and Lucifer only gains power through influence. Stop listening to him, and he has no power over you, or anyone else. We still have more satanic steps to illustrate, but while the steps are being forced indoctrinated into the child and used on the masses at large, the child victim is also undergoing severe internal brain mapping so as to make them fully manipulatable. at least while the programming holds. I hope you're beginning to see that these same principles work very well on a society, too. Over the next several episodes, we're going to pause from our investigation of the satanic steps and deal more with world building and brain programming before returning to them. Fair use.
All right, guys, I know that was a lot to take in tonight. Those were the 5 principles that are included in the MK Ultra Monarch program. There are a lot of variations on them. There are a lot of different techniques to implementing them. I believe that the primary resource that would have been referenced for this, if it were me doing the research, would have been Fritz Springmeier's work, The Illuminati Formula and Deeper Insights, which are in my library. If anyone wants them, those will be in the description, link to my library. Next, we have Fantasia. We'll do an analysis of Fantasia. We have color programming, mind mapping, and after that, we have 4 episodes that go deep into Fritz Springmeier's The Bloodlines of the Illuminati. So that'll be one night worth of content right there. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's the way that it's presented. I'm not sure how to say her name. Shilexi. Yeah, it's a lot different when it's presented in the way that it is presented. I think that the narrator has a real talent for presenting, because it almost comes off as a bit of a sermon, especially with how he will combine the scripture with it. It was really inspiring to hear this the first time, and coming back to hear it again and again, you pick up a lot of things you missed the first time. I would definitely say that the Armageddon Programming segment at the very end. So let's see, we're just finished episode 10. There's 22 episodes total. James is gone until, I believe, Friday. So that means that we should have enough time to finish this whole podcast. That's the goal. So if we finish early, I mean, I can try and find something to fill up the time. Maybe some of the article content that I've wrote. And yes, this will be recorded. You will be able to rewatch it. I also have links to all the individual episodes, which will be in the description as well. Yeah, I encourage you guys to definitely just kind of go back and rewatch these. Maybe the individual episodes where you can watch just one part or the part that you want to hear. I know that presenting them kind of all together at once can be a little overwhelming. Really, this is just an opportunity for me to learn how to run a show. There's actually quite a bit behind it, especially for me, because I've had to rig it up a little bit. I don't have a studio set up or anything like that. So this was kind of just a spur of the moment thing. James and I agreed that this was good information to get out. We thought that it was imperative that someone in the audience hear it. I don't know who. I don't know what day. But from here until James gets back, whoever wanders in here and hears what they need to hear, I believe it's meant to be. So I appreciate you guys tonight. I appreciate you all tuning in. those who stuck with me through the whole broadcast. I know it's been a long one. But yeah, I'm gonna roll the Flame advertisement one more time, just because those are great people. I hope you all have a good night. I appreciate that, every single one of you. Me and James both do. I hope to see you again back tomorrow night. Thanks, guys.
If you're looking for a publication that delivers honest takes and critical insights into the issues of our day, then look no further than the Flame Paper. The Flame Paper is written for the people, by the people, who aren't afraid to challenge a mainstream narrative, be it healthcare, voter fraud, political correctness, or even the one-world government. The Flame is full of timely articles, reports, and expert advice written by freedom-loving, truth-telling experts, journalists, and concerned citizens. To subscribe, go to theflameusa.com.